So we have a primary. Why do you think you do better? You have a better chance to beat Tammy than your opponent?
I think I have a good chance to beat Tammy, and also, as I laid out, I'm campaigning to have a mandate to govern as a conservative. And that's my focus, saying, okay, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do when you elect me. And that, I believe, is very important to do. So I'm campaigning to succeed, not simply campaigning to win. Winning is a transitory thing. You win a football game, but you succeed at life. You may win an election with glib talk, with empty promises. We saw that in 2008. But in this district, I believe you can only succeed by actually saying, this is what I want to do when you elect me. Because we see the idea of promising one thing and then governing differently. You get pushed back monstrously, and in this district, the only way I believe that any non-liberal can survive is to say, here's what I'm going to do, and then when elected, to follow through. Because you're going to get hit by the liberals whatever you do, but this way, if you actually follow through, then folks like yourselves can say, yes, this is what Peter said in his vetting session, he's following through on that, I'll support him for it. Because that's the only way that a conservative representative is going to survive in this district.
You use a term that's very close to the hearts of most of the people in this group, which is conservative. I think most of the people in this room would definitely classify themselves in that way. We know what it means to us. What does it mean to you to be a conservative?
Okay.
How do you define it?
I put it as, I think it's sort of there's three aspects to it. The first aspect would be a fiscal conservative. In other words, a limited government, lower taxes, a strong national defense. I believe if you don't have a strong national defense, nothing else really matters. We see that we have that folks are flying bombs into the United States, and we need to deal with that. We have Iran, who is in the process, probably even as we speak, of enriching uranium, and may or may not have enough to already cause mischief. We need to be able to deal with that. And then the third aspect of being a conservative is a social conservative. I am pro-life, and I believe in strong family values. So those are the three things that, to me, go into making up a conservative.
As an educator, what's your take on the Department of Education?
Federal Department of Education probably isn't needed. So, but now, you've probably seen in the news, Sharon Angle said we should abolish it. And what happened to her? So I'll say the same thing. In terms of cutting out that 40%, I think the Department of Education certainly needs to be on the block there. But if the same thing happens to me, then I'll expect you to rally there. But yes, I've got, as I put it, 30 years of experience with the discharge end of the K-12 pipeline. And so I know, that yes, you can get students who are very good, but you have others who were socially promoted, and I've dealt with the remedial math courses at the college level, and that's a waste of our money. Okay, we should have taught them that high school math in high school, so we don't have to teach them again in college. Sir?
Well, the finances, I'm very interested in. You mentioned that you'd like to go back to the 2007 set point, where we were only $162 billion over budget. What do we do? I mean, that's not sustainable to continually every year spend even $162 billion, which in
correct.
Comparison to the trillion sounds small, but still is a very large sum of money.
You're correct there. At this point, what we have is such a massive rollback that's needed, that to just in some sense give that as a starting point, saying, okay, let's take that as our initial point, saying, okay, in 2007, this worked. Unfortunately, we know what the deficit was at that point, but if we roll back our spending to that point, what will our income be? So will the deficit be bigger, will it be smaller? I suspect at this point that because the revenues have been decreasing, if we were to simply cut spending to that point, we'd probably have an even bigger deficit than we had then. But the hope is that if we say, all right, we're going to cut back to that, we're going to reinstate, because they'll have lapsed before the next Congress gets into session, so we'll reinstate the Republican tax cuts, kill the the death tax for good. Then people will start saying, okay, we have more certainty now. One thing we can look back at is in 1994, the bond market was drifting down until Election Day. The Republicans took over Congress, and then we started seeing a spike, an upward trend. So there's hope then that if on November 2nd we take the House, and that would be gravy if we can also take the Senate, but certainly. So if we take at least one House of Congress, then folks start saying, okay, there's adults in charge now, and so we might see turnaround then in terms of our financial markets, and then maybe the income picture might not be as bad. But let's use 2007 as a starting point, because frankly I think that we're going to get lots of arrows for that, and say, okay, you don't like that, well, how about we go back to 2000? Because frankly that's where we are in jobs wise. We have lost all the jobs that we gained in the Bush recovery. Our employment picture is back to where we were in 2000, which is terrible. And that's the other thing. It's very interesting if you plot companies by year, by age. So you have to take all the startups, take all the 1-year-old companies, 2-year-old, 3-year-old on out to Procter & Gamble, 135, whatever. And then for in each of those year cohorts or age cohorts, you say, okay, how many jobs are created and how many jobs are lost? Well, every cohort beyond 1 year and beyond loses more jobs than it gains. So if you want to gain jobs, the place where we gain them is startups. So yeah, so we really need to encourage people to go into business, because that's where we get and as you imagine, a company a startup, well, they can't lose any jobs there because there's no jobs to lose. Whereas even a 1-year-old company can go out of business and lose those jobs. So I was surprised when I saw that graph on the web, but it does point to entrepreneurship is the only way we're going to dig out, and we are in the worst jobs recession we've ever had since World War II. There's a very scary graph. I think it's actually called the scariest employment graph on the internet. And what they've done is you plot the zero is the level of employment at the beginning of that recession, and then its percentage decrease during the months by month during the recession. So percentage decrease and then back up. Okay, we are at the deepest percentage increase that we have ever had in a post-war recession. Okay, in terms of decrease from that previous peak in employment, and we are the second longest where we are right now of any of those in terms of how long they took to get back up to zero. Okay. There's only one recession that's so far longer than this one, and we're down. We're not even starting to turn up. We're still at the bottom basement. So, yeah, I'll get you. Realize that we need jobs. We need employment because, and the other projection is it's going to take us on the order of 5 to 7 years of rapid employment growth to get back to where we were when this started. In the back.
Maybe
Thanks
this
for
isn't
waiting.
a fair question, but I always hear how the United States is always giving money to all these other countries. Is that just a small pittance? I mean, couldn't we cut back on some of that and